So if you are going to try this build, it's a very good idea to do it as a league starter, because it's very strong early and incredibly strong in the mid game. And then like 7 or 8 out of 10 strong in the late game. If you fully invest in it, it's like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. But I haven't fully invested, and it still feels like a 9 out of 10 to me, so do with that information what you will. But also, oh, it's a rough feeling trying anything else and being like, oh, EA could do better. I'm going to leave most of the details up to you to read for yourself in the Path of Building link in the description. It'll come up with a nice little web page showing all my gear, the tree, all my items, all my jewels, all my clusters. So have a read through that if you just want to copy the build. Otherwise, stay tuned for more gameplay, more discussion about gear choices, tree, all that. Okay, let me put Oppenheimer on, and I'll showcase that as well. Okay, T16, Alcan Go, Blue Altars, Beasts, and an Expedition. Let's go. So I might show this gameplay at the start, and then I'll talk about the build, and then I'll end the video with more of this gameplay. Oh, and I should talk about the playstyle while I'm here. This build is fantastic because it clears the entire screen, multiple screens worth of ignites. It's not particularly fast, but it's not slow. So your clear speed is kind of tied to how quickly everything dies. But it covers the entire screen, multiple screens, so you don't really have to worry about stragglers or aiming or anything like that. So it might feel a little bad sometimes because it's not very fast, but you've got to remember how comfy it is, and how reliable it is, and how good it is at certain content, like Harbingers and Expedition. So it's still very worth doing. So speaking of Expedition, let's see if I can do an Oppenheimer without failing. Just to showcase the build. That's fine. It's a good feeling. Yeah, explosions would be better here, but this is reliable, pretty, safe, and fun. Took a big hit there, but honestly, Expeditions should be scarier than that. Nice. It's a pretty shit Expedition too, but still. Okay, no, I wasn't done talking about playstyle. So the thing to remember is you don't have phasing normally, so running through packs like this is a terrible way, it's an easy way to get killed. But if you have a phasing flask with gain charges on hit and used on full, it's up almost all the time, especially when you're getting hit. So that's like a good way to automate phasing, and it makes mapping so much nicer on any build. So if you don't have a source of phasing, automate it on a flask. It's amazing. Oh, and actually, I forgot to explain that in the I forgot to explain that in the gear section. So I'll explain that real quick as part of the playstyle. I'm not using a unique chest, because I wanted to use a rare so I can get the flask charge gain mod on the Eldritch Implicit. I feel like that helps a lot in boss fights. It's just another form of consistent flask charge gain, which is hard to come by on any other build than Pathfinder. So that, in combination with just running through things and dropping down totems, makes this build feel very comfy and very lazy, while being shockingly tanky and having really good single target and really good clear. It's one of the few builds in the game that can do everything, and it's a league starter. So this is probably a 10 out of 10 build for me. I actually don't have any complaints. The only time this build kind of sucks is when the totems die. But they don't die for me anymore, because I have this wheel, and I have a bit of totem life on 2 jewels. And that's it. I can summon them infinitely, so it doesn't matter. Okay, I should go do that ultimatum actually. I need him. I'll check that in a sec. Okay, here's some altars. Totems last 8 seconds. That's with Malevolence. Without Malevolence, they last 6 seconds. So, you don't have to spam them. In fact, spamming them hurts your DPS. So what you should do is make sure you have 6, and then run around a bit, make sure they're doing their work, and then everything melts. Feels amazing. Okay, let me do this last ultimatum. It survived. Okay. I can do this. This is also a good showcase because ultimatums are fucking scary. I'm trying to find the boss here. So if you are going to try this build, it's a very good idea to do it as a league starter, because it's very strong early, and incredibly strong in the mid-game. And then, like, 7 or 8 out of 10 strong in the late game. If you fully invest in it, it's like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. But I haven't fully invested, and it still feels like a 9 out of 10 to me, so... do with that information what you will. I've probably rambled a lot, so I have at least 2 videos I can make out of all this crap. That's good. Ignite Prolif has solid clear because anything that does damage while you're not taking actions is good for clear. Exactly. Which is why I love so many minion builds. The more time I can focus on dodging and the less time I can focus on doing damage, the better. The best build I've played this league. Which isn't a surprise to anyone that knows what this is, but Explosive Arrow Champion is still good. I know, shocking news, but still. Needs to be said. I haven't played every single version of Explosive Arrow, but I've played Elementalist, I've played a few different champions, and I've even played a Raider. Champion is by far the best. Raider is the fastest, Elementalist has the best damage. Champion is still the best. There's a few reasons for that. One being it's a champion, so it takes a lot less damage. And because of that, it allows you to invest more heavily into damage everywhere else. Because you don't have to really worry about getting as much defense. Because even Champ had trouble staying alive in T16 Affliction content. So it made me invest a bit more into damage and a bit more into defense, and I kind of topped out. Made me realize this is kind of a league starter build. If I want to do something more, I needed to make a second build with like a beginning budget of 10 divines. But until that point, this thing came online in Act 4, and just steamrolled all the content until T16. If you build this correctly, it'll feel like you're cheating. It's a bit too good. But it is a little bit difficult to put together, because you've got to balance as much attack speed as possible with the right gear, and still trying to get all the right defenses. So Spell Suppress Cap is something you have to intentionally go for, unlike on Raider, where it's kind of an accident to get Spell Suppress Cap. Armor and Evasion, that's pretty solid, but Spell Suppress Cap and getting enough Chaos Res was a bit of a problem, but that's a normal problem to overcome. The thing that made this build really shine in terms of defenses was trying to get as much life regen as possible. I've settled on over 700, which is a really nice feeling. I would love over 1,000, if possible. I might try to make another version of this with like 1,000 life regen, if I can. That might be tricky, but I'll find a way. Why is my spell suppress only 90? So I guess it's 100 with the flask up. That's not great. Okay, I need to fix that. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about this build because the version I have, I wouldn't necessarily recommend people try to do this, but it does work well. I just know that this isn't the single best version of the build. So take this with a grain of salt. This is how I put it together. You can copy this if you want, but I recommend just stealing ideas. Don't copy the entire thing, maybe copy the outline, maybe copy some ideas that I've done, but don't do the whole thing. Every build is unique in like what you get and when and how you progress with it, especially a league starter like this. But don't worry about copying it. Just steal some ideas. Okay, let me explain what those ideas are. On this build in particular, you've got to decide if you want to use this hat or not. Wilma's Requital gives you Ancestral Bond, which is all the way over here on the tree. So this saves a lot of points, which I can then invest into damage and other fun things over here. But I still have a hard time getting enough attack speed. This helps a lot, because this lets attack and cast speed count towards attack speed. So, as long as you have a good enough bow, you can kind of relax and not overly invest in attack speed, but you still have to moderately invest in it intentionally. Don't rely on flasks if you can help it. I've got attack speed on some flasks, and it does help, but I've got 2.6, I think, without it. 2.4. 2.62 without it. And that gets me to an average of 21 fuses. With all my flasks up and with all the buffs up, I'm at like 3 point something. Yeah, 2.9. And that gets me to 22 easily. Which it is a new standard of 22. Technically 23 is what you want to aim for. So 2.7 attack speed is really what you've got to try to get the best version of this possible. Speaking of, I do think I have the best setup I can. I don't have the best bow I can. This is not like the best possible bow is about 10 div. This is maybe 4 or 5. But it's a little tiny bit of damage that makes up that rest of that cost, so don't worry too much. Just worry about getting a 6 link with +3 and at least tier 2 attack speed. Yeah, the other thing that I am missing out because of not coming up here is I'm not getting the minion attack speed, which usually helps a lot in this build. But there's no way to fit that in now. So I've got to rely on the bow having a good base attack speed. I definitely need attack speed on a few pieces of gear and quiver. So I'm a bit starved myself here, because I've only got 8% on gloves. You can get more. I don't have it on either ring. And I don't even have it on an anoint. I don't even have it on a quiver. So I've got sweet fuck all attack speed on my gear. I just have a little bit on my gloves. And the rest of it's coming from my tree. And a little bit of cheating from Malevolence. But anyway. Point being, don't forget to invest in attack speed. Get it on rings if you can. This is what I mean by don't copy me, just steal ideas. Anyway. Speaking of ideas. I have +2 arrows, but only because I've anointed +1 arrow, and I've got a quiver with an additional arrow. So this saves me having to use Rain of Splinters entirely. So I get the additional clear speed of having 3 projectiles, and no damage cost. So this is something I'm going to try to copy in the future, but this is a very late addition. This is an expensive thing that just helps clear, it doesn't really help much. I recommend doing that if you need it. As soon as you drop LMP, you can try to get this, but getting that on a quiver might be expensive. And there are more important things, like attack speed. So ignore this until very, very late, if you can. Otherwise, yeah, Rain of Splinters isn't a terrible choice. Spending all the points in the tree is a bit of a waste, but that's also an option. Let me talk about the gem links real quick. You can see all the gems and all the gear in the Path of Building link in the description, but I'll quickly talk about the gems for EA right now, so they make sense. So EA by itself, best version possible is at 2120, a little bit expensive, but very worth it. The new quality gives +2 additional stacks. That actually puts a bit more pressure on us to get more attack speed for the build, because now the total stack is 22, not just 20. So 10% more attack speed is needed. Don't quote me on that math, that just sounds right. That might not actually be right. Anyway, so the links are Ballista Totem on EA, Awaken Burning Damage, because it gives +1 to fire skill gems. This is important, keep an eye on the gem levels here. So EA is 21 by itself, linked with Ballista Totem, Awaken Burning Damage, Combustion, which I do need for the chance to ignite, and it's just good. Elemental damage with attacks, which I don't know if I can get an awakened one with another gem, but for now it's fine. And then Empower 4, So the reason I have Empower 4 here, not just 3, is because I do need as many levels as I can. Because I didn't realize I could so easily hit level 30 on EA. But if you have a +3 bow, level 4 Empower, and a +1 Fire Gem Amulet, getting level 30 EA has never been easier. It's like, so very worth doing. It's kind of the idea of the build, actually, is make your way here as soon as possible. Speaking of gem links, I did have, I think it was Ellie damage with attacks I had swapped out with life tap. You'll use life tap for most of the time, leveling up until like level 90 or something. Eventually, if you have enough mana spare, at least 100, I've even needed to cram in Clarity as a form of mana regen, and 2 -7 to mana cost crafts. With all that, and having the skills cost 30% of life instead of mana, puts the cost down to 18 mana and 12 life, which is just enough to reliably spam them. But when I slow down and I get out of mana, this is the spam speed, which is still acceptable if I'm in a pinch. So when I'm running and out of mana, it's like this, and that's not bad. But if I'm running and I'm not out of mana, I can just do a drive-by and pop them all down. So it's still good. So before this, if you have mana problems, just use life tap. It's very worth it for keeping up totems more than having damage. Okay, that's enough ranting about that. I'm not going to go into gear choices too much, although I will one quick note. I'll explain I don't have Polaric Devastation for the cover enemies in Ash, because this league, it exists on a charm. So I've skipped getting Polaric Devastation, in case you're wondering why that ring isn't here. Not this time. The main effect of it is on a charm now, which, by god, charms are insane. Real quick, 30% chance to gain endurance charge when hit. That's nuts, that's awesome. Recoup 11% of damage taken by your totems as life is also insane. Love that. Damage taken from nearest totem and mana reservation. Yeah, pretty good. And free backpack for inventory. I wish this was fucking permanent. You have no idea how much I wish this was permanent. Anyway, don't want to rant too much about that. And standard champ. Make sure you get the taunt. Get Fortify first, but get taunt in lab. Anyway. I think I'm done talking about gear. Let's talk about tree. Tree is a clusterfuck. I don't recommend people copy this. I recommend copying something off of PoE or something off of Ninja instead. But in case you do want to copy this, you can do exactly this. This is pretty balanced, and there's nothing I would recommend not taking. You could worry about spell suppress last, you could take off this life. So let's simulate what it would look like at level 90. So I'm at 95. So if I take a few points off, here and there. Okay, so that's 5 points off. So this would be roughly a level 90 tree. And this is pretty good. This has... I've got no, like, I've got no increased max res, but that's fine. I have pretty good armor and evasion when I'm running around with all flasks up. I don't invest too much in defenses, but 78% fizz and almost 70% dodge feels great in combination. Oh, hello, Miller Jessica. Thank you for the follow. I'm in the middle of making like a quick build guide for one of the builds I made this league. Yeah, so just started talking about the tree. Nothing special. You can level like this, because once you get to Act 4, you can get EA. If you have a 4 link, you have the full setup. Explosive Arrow with Ballista Totem, Combustion, and Ellie Prolif from Act 1. That's your setup. Once you get Ignite Prolif from Act 4, swap that in. Once you get... If you have damage problems, you can put in faster attacks or burning damage, something. 4 link is all you need, and this build is ready to go. And when you get Fortify, you feel amazing. So come out here, start by going for... If you are copying, if you are going straight for EA, you could just do Toxic Rain Totems and Caustic Arrow leveling as champ, which is still fine. It's not great. But if you're doing that, I'd come up here for the bow stuff first, and down here for more bow stuff, then totems, and by this point, you might be nearing Act 4. You can start coming up here, come out this way. By the end of the campaign, come down here, get this. Yellow maps, start thinking about all the little touches. Let me explain the cluster jewels real quick. Nothing else needs explanation, really. It's all very simple and stretched out. Keep in mind this attack speed is attack and cast speed, which works for Wilma's as doubled up. So this is very worth it here. This is 8% attack speed each. That's 24% attack speed for 3 points, which is a difference of 2.32 becoming 2.11. That's a good amount of attack speed just from that. Let me put these points back on to get that speed back up, actually. Oh, and getting Ignite Chance is a little annoying, but this wheel, combined with Combustion, is good enough. I think that gets you to like 70. Yeah, 70% chance to Ignite. That's fine. Actually, I might be getting some Ignite Chance over here. Yeah, there's 10% from here. Yeah, 10% here. So you could get a couple of these if you really needed to get more Ignite Chance. Otherwise, you can come out 1, 2, 3 points. And there's the last 30 there. I've decided it's not worth it. It probably is worth it, but I felt like it's not. I needed points elsewhere. So, you're really hurting there. You can get 100% Ignite Chance if you want. And there's more damage here. So, let me talk about clusters real quick, and that'll be it. I got a large 8 passive elemental. The reason I like doing this is because Disorienting Display is one of my favorite cluster jewel nodes. It gives you free blind and damage. And this does work because I'm using EA. Even though it's putting down a totem, it counts as me using an elemental skill. So, it blinds nearby enemies for free. Good shit. Prismatic Heart, just good for the damage and res. Ancestral Echo, 10% attack and cast speed if you've summoned totem recently. That is, I believe, 20%. And it takes it from 2.4 to 2.6. And 2.6 is enough to get me to 20. And with any flask up, 2.9. That's enough to get 22. So, that is that. The other very, very important thing to get here, that is kind of mandatory, not mandatory early, but if you don't have Ignite Proliferation, it's not in my links. I have Ignite from Fan the Flames. I could have gotten it on gloves, but that was way too annoying, and this was way too easy to get. And it's just as good. So I recommend this more, because I feel like I can get attack speed and spell suppress on gloves, and that's more beneficial than 1 point on the tree. And the other one is chance to ignite anyway, so it's just good. I have a reservation cluster for Malevolence to squeeze that in, pretty important. Auras aren't too much to worry about. Before you can fit Malevolence, just have Skitterbots. Maybe even put Skitterbots on a curse ring, like, just doesn't matter. Just do what you can until you have the money to upgrade into what you want. It's like when I was playing Arakalis. I'm happier with the worse amulet, because I feel like it gives me more than the quote-unquote best in-slot amulet. But anyway, we'll get off track there. So that's the clusters. Only got 1 and 2 for mana. Make sure to get that 12% mastery. Very important. Oh, this mastery is really nice for getting a lot of life regen, because essentially this lets you scale life regen with fire res. So imagine if I had fire res on every piece of gear. My life regen would be over 1,000. That's how I plan on getting it next league. I'm gonna try that, I think. Nothing really big to think about except for getting the right bow. Don't try to make your own. Just buy one. make sure it's +3, make sure it has T2 attack speed at least, and make sure it does not have any fire damage. If you're playing this build and you're copying this tree, this one node will fuck you if you have any fire damage added to the build. So if you mouse over that, you can see that there's cold damage at the top. If anywhere in that list you see flat fire damage, you're screwed. This line that says explosion has fire damage, that's fine. If there's any fire damage before that, this will hurt. I won't explain that in this video. If you want a proper explanation of that, let me know and I might be able to type it out in the comments. In the meantime though, I think I'm done talking about EA. So I talked about getting 2 additional arrows in a bit of a cheaty way, but getting attack speed on the quiver I would say is more important. And you can get it on rings, and you can get more on gloves. So again, I'll say it one last time. Don't copy me, but please steal ideas.